audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Uh, okay, can I start?
Yes, Prajesh, please start.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
My terminal is visible, right?
Yes.
Should I make it little bigger, the font size?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
No, this is not.
Yeah, it is okay for me.
Yeah, I think it's visible. Yes.
Okay. So,
Pradesh, before you start, can I ask a doubt?
yeah, sure, sure.
I tried to give git pull in that OEM folder, but it was not working. It was showing there is no tracking information for the current branch. Please specify which branch you want to merge with and all.
Mm, okay. Can you or did we do it now?
I cannot hear you properly. Hello.
Okay, my voice is hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now it is audible.
Yeah, so I need to see your screen for that.
Okay. Should I share then?
Can we do it after the session maybe? Or
Okay, fine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that should not be a problem actually. Or you can even do another thing. You can just remove that. I mean, if you don't have any local changes, you can just pull it. I mean, clone it again.
Okay, git clone and the address that no?
Yeah.
Okay. Shika ma'am, can you give that address? I don't have that.
Yeah, I will email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in today's session, we'll be covering mainly two things. The first thing will be how to use the diag manager, FMS diag manager, to get outputs, and how to use the data override routine for doing the input, the reading of data, and overriding the fields which are already there in the model. So we'll be covering these two. So I'll start. I'll be doing it in the same example which we did in the last session, the heap equation program. So maybe should I do an overview of what we did last time? Yeah, maybe I'll just go through what we did last time. So when you're using FMS, the first thing before doing anything, before writing any code, you need these three initializations. Okay, and it should be in this order. First, you have to initialize MPP init, then FMS init, and then FMS IO init. Okay, so this initializes the FMS infrastructure. After that, we are defining the processor layout. depending upon how many processor we are using. So the number of processor you'll get from MPP and PS. We are defining the processor layout. So this is processor layout. It's not domain decomposition. Okay, how the processor should be arranged. Whether it should be 2D, if it is in 2D, how it should be. So once you decide the processor layout, so this step actually here, the defining the layout. When you call this MPP define layout, it gives you an optimum layout depending upon two things: your global domain, depending upon how many points are there, and the number of processors available. It will arrange the processors in an optimum. You might want to override this, like you want your own processor layout. In that case, you can avoid this and just give domain layout as an input. Okay, so domain layout is just two values, a array of two values. So basically that two values, if you multiply, it should come to as total number of processors. After that, once you have the processor, then you can go ahead. So in the domain, you need to decide how many halos you want. So in this case, we need only one halo. So in both the direction, X and Y. And the domain information lies in this variable domain. And this domain is of the type domain 2D. It's a 2D domain, so it's a type domain 2D. Next is to get the local domain bounds, local compute domain bounds. You can get it by MPP get compute domain, and there you get the local bounds of the domain in both the direction, I direction and J direction. You can also get the local data domain bound by MPP get data domain, and data domain is nothing but compute domain plus the halos. Once you have those, you can go ahead and allocate your array, allocate arrays, and then here we are giving the boundary condition, and then here in the loop from now onwards, we have to use the local bounds wherever we are doing the computation. We need to use the local domain bounds for the spatial dimension. Once the computation is done, you need to do the update. Okay, you need to transfer the information of the boundary to the neighboring processor, which is done by MPP update domain. Okay, okay, and yeah, so that's it. And then we are writing the output here at the end of the time loop. Okay, here this is the time loop. This is the time loop. And after that, we need to exit the FMS infrastructure by calling these exit routine. So we'll first see how to implement Diag Manager in that. So before implementing Diag Manager needs time information. So right now we don't have any time information here. We are just using a simple loop for time. But for using the Diag Manager, we need some time information for the model. So we'll first implement the time manager in this model. Okay. So I'm going to import some of the modules. Yeah, and get the time from time manager mode. I'll get from the time manager mode, I'll get all these. Set calendar type. Okay, then okay. So the first thing you have to do when you're setting the time the time manager is to set a calendar type. Okay, so there are a few calendar types available with FMS. Maybe I can show you some of what are the available calendar types. So these are the list of available calendar types. So you have 30-day month, you have Julian calendar, you have Gregorian, no leap, and there is no calendar, which means you don't use any calendar. It's just values from 0 to whatever loops you are using, which is not very useful. And there is invalid calendar, which is again for checking if a calendar is valid or not. So mainly we have 4 calendars here: 30 days month, 30-day month, Julian, Gregorian, and Noli. Okay. So for now, I'll use no leap calendar in this. So first thing you have to do is to set the calendar type. I will set it to no leap. Yeah. Okay. Once you set the calendar type, you actually activated the time manager. Now you need a start date. From which the model will start. So for that, I need to so the time variable in the time manager is derived data type, or you can call it as an object, similar to the Python object, and it's a time type. So you have to define maybe type. Start time. Okay. Just maybe we'll keep that just time, and you also need a time type for the time step value. So I'll call it as DT here, and all these are of the type time type. That's already defined. Okay. Now, next thing you have to do is you have to set the start before starting the model. You have to set the start time when your model is starting. So I'll set some date here, and to do that, I'm using another function, set date. Okay.
Prajesh, I have a doubt
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
This del time is different from DT.
DT, it's an integer. It's just I'm using it for loop. No, sorry. Yeah, DT is just a real number, which I'm here giving it as 1. It it can it can be 1 second, and we are here we are not using any particular unit. So 1 can be 1 second or 1 hour or whatever. So it's just a value like that. But del time is a time type, and it should be you should give a real value for that, like hours or second or whatever. That will be exactly the time step which we are using, because what we will be doing is we'll be just incrementing the start time with delting at every loop.
Okay.
Okay. So for now, let's say we are keeping it as 1 hour, maybe. Okay. So then from the start time, when the loop goes on, we'll just increment that time to plus 1 hour, plus 1 hour, like that.
Okay.
So that's how we'll update the time of the model. Okay. So actually, we don't need DT anymore when you're using delta.
Okay.
You should be using deltim itself. Okay. So now deltim we defined. Now we have to set a initial time. Yeah, start time. Yeah. So I'm using this function set date. The arguments for this are integers. So the first thing is an integer for the year. Okay, let's say I'm giving 2000, and then January, 1st of January, and then hour 0, 0, 0. Okay. So, so what this will do is, this will take this date and time and convert it into a time type, and it will assign to this time variable, this time object. Okay. Now, another thing we have to decide is what is the time step. Okay. For that, we have to use another function called set time. Set time. So delta time is set time, and it takes these arguments. Don't bother about these two. It takes basically seconds and days. So if you are using 1 hour, we can give it as maybe 3 seconds, and you don't need to give anything else. So this means the delta time is set to 1 hour. Okay. We also need to import some power. Operator. So this is an addition operator for time type. Okay. Okay, now I'll implement that in here. So now we have the initial time set to 2000 January 1st, 00 hours, and the delta time is 1 hour. So after every loop, we are going to update the time. So this is, you can see this is inside the time loop. So every time the time loop goes, it updates the time. I'm not sure whether we have to put it at the end of the loop or at the starting of the loop. We'll see that once we get the output. We can check that once more. So once we have that, we can. Okay, now we have time information for our model.
Is the time variable defined, this time?
Yeah, so the time is defined as time type.
Okay.
Both of them are defined as time type. Now we can implement the diag manager. So basically, to use diag manager, it's done in basically in two major steps, or maybe three major steps. First step is to define the coordinate. Okay, just imagine just imagine how an CDF is written. First, you need the coordinates in the file, right? Before defining any variable. So first thing is you need to define the coordinates. Then you need to define the variable name, or the variables and its attributes, everything. And then you just, the second step, defining the variable. And the third step is putting the data into that. So these are the three steps while implementing Diag Manager. So we'll go through each one of that. So I have to import the thing. So first thing to do is call the Diag Manager init, which will initialize the Diag Manager. So I will call it here. Call Diag Manager init. Okay. And then you have to define the axis, which is what I call coordinate. So first of the next is to define the axis. Axis in it. So yeah, this is what you're seeing now is from ODTM. So you can see that we are defining an axis longitude, then we are defining an axis latitude. So we'll just copy this from here.
So, Prajesh?
Yeah.
Hello. So, is this diag axis attribute is like anywhere related with diag table? Like some association is there, or it's purely independent things going on?
Diag axis init.
Diag table, like we initially.
Yeah. So this is yes. It is associated. I mean, it's linked to Diag table. I will explain how it is related. So what it does and all after implementing this.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are defining the x coordinate, which is longitude here. So we need an array here with the coordinate values. Okay, so I'll explain what are these things. So basically, when you call this function diag_access init, the required arguments are a name for the access. So here the name is lon. You can put longitude if you want anything. Okay. Then you have to give give the actual value for the access, which we have to create here now. Then you need the unit, okay, which is degrees east, and which axis it is, the Cartesian name, which is x, and long name you can give longitude, and give the domain also, domain information. Okay, you have to give this domain information because the whole data is not there in any single processor. So it's all, the whole data is distributed. So when you write the data, the access are partitioned. The whole data is partitioned, so the access are also partitioned into small chunks, and how it should be partitioned to diag manager to understand that, you need to give the domain also. So these are the arguments which you have to give while defining an access. We have two accesses here.
So that attributes mentioned in the diag table should match with these names, no? Like longitude or lon.
Yes. Yeah. But you don't need to match it with the axis anyway, because you're not axis will automatically come when you're writing a variable. Axis information will automatically be there.
So this is for output variable, and that diag table we are mentioning for input files, like that forcing file that we are.
No, diag table, diag manager, diag table, everything is for output.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the name which will come in the output NetCDF. If you see the coordinate or the axis name for x-axis will be longitude, and you will have a variable longitude in that with the coordinate information. Okay, so now and when you do this, it will return a ID for this access. Okay, and you have to save this ID. Okay.
So that Prajesh, that ID is a I mean, that ID contains a lot of information about each of these arguments, or that ID is only an integer or an indicator for this axis?
Just an integer. It's just an integer, but when it that integer is an index to this axis, and this axis information is inside the diag manager. So when you use this index, axis index for a particular variable, so now why this index is required? We'll be using this index to define a variable.
Okay. First time we are calling GDX is first time calling into the model now. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
This ID lon contains the elements of GDX, or how that?
ID lon doesn't. No, ID lon contains only just a number. So we'll be defining lon as integer.
Okay. Integer ID lon.
Yeah. Integer ID lon ID black.
Okay, it's something like NCVID in NetCDF, right? NCVID or lon ID something.
Yeah. So the it's like the NetPDF variable ID or
variable ID. Correct.
Yeah.
So this is GDY na second line ID lat diag axis
GDY.
init
Yeah.
GDY, and log name is latitude, right? The second line. Next line.
Yeah. Now we have to define this
GDX, GDY, yes.
Yeah. Now we'll just define it arbitrarily. So first we have to define GDX and GDY as a real. Okay. I'm going to define real locatable GD. Okay. GDY. Allocate to GDX through 1 to NX.
NX.
1 to NX. GDY. N to NY. 1 to NY. After that, we should populate this with the values. So, yeah, know how much we are using NX 1000 and NY at 500. So we'll just take some area. Let's say the area is over the Indian Ocean and maybe between 20 to 20 and 40 to 100. So the GDX should go from 40 to 100. So how can we do that? I from 1 to N. So let's say I define GD of 1 is equal to 40. Actually, GDX and GDY information, when you're in ODTM, it comes from the grid spec file.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't need to actually create this like this. In actual model, it will come from the grid information. So here, then try. I need to find the solution. Okay. Keep on adding this, it will do, right?
Yeah. You can give D access right there.
Yeah, I just don't want to define the variable.
Okay.
And similarly, for dy, take from -20 to y. So now we have dx and dy here. Okay.
Why you remove that dimension there?
Actually, it's not required.
Okay.
Giving it, it's not IMT. Yeah,
Oh, it's NX. Yes.
Yeah. So 1 to NX is same as giving x GDX.
Okay.
Okay. So now that we have defined the axis, we can go ahead and define the variable. Okay. Defining the variable. So there are two kinds of variables which you can define. Actually, it's called field. So there are two fields which you can define. One is the time varying one, which will have, which will change with the time, and there are fields which can be static, which don't, like topography and all, which won't. So you can define two types of fields. And for defining the time varying one, you have to use the register diag field. And for defining the static fields, you have to use register static field. So here we'll define a diag field. Okay. So the first argument is a module name. So this is, now if you remember the diag table, there was something in the at the first of the variable name, which we had written something like ODTM or something. So that is actually a module name. So, and why it is, I mean, what purpose it serves is that, let's assume that it's a very complicated model, maybe an ocean model, which has many number of processors. Okay, you have dynamics and you have vertical mixing, and each one of these are done in different modules. Okay, first you do the dynamics and maybe then you do the vertical mixing and so on. Now, if you want to output a variable, let's say temperature, potential temperature, or any other variable from different modules, let's say you want to get the potential temperature from the dynamic, and maybe you want also it from vertical mixing and so on. So in that case, in such cases, you can use this module name to differentiate. So that the variable name will still be maybe temperature or TMP something, but you can select from where you want that variable by identifying or giving the proper module name. So so when you give it in the so let's say we give some name here. Now, okay, let's say we gave it as main, and the field name as, let's say, temp. Okay, so you have to give exactly main temp in the diag manager to get the variable from this particular module. Okay, now if you have you have registered a temp and you are outputting temp from some other module also, and if you want to get from that, you need to give corresponding module name and the variable name. Okay, is it clear?
Sort of.
Yeah, not very clear. So this looks like it is a module specific call, register diag field.
Yes, it's module specific. But
Okay.
here we are not using any modules here, but in that case you can just use it as in the main program also. So what I'm saying is, for the purpose of this first argument is to separate a single variable name from different
okay.
processes.
So
Okay?
it gives also you can use same variable for different modules, same variable name.
That's right. Yeah. So let's say we call temperature, potential temperature as potential temperature itself everywhere, regardless of whether it is in dynamics or in vertical mixing or whatever, right? So so you can register that variable name as temp itself in all of these, and you can get a separate output from different modules. You by switching this module name in the diag manager.
Okay.
We'll see. Maybe we can see an example
In diag manager.
Yes. How this? Okay. So next argument is also required. This is the initial time, which you have to give it as time. I guess we have defined time already. Yeah, we have defined.
Time.
So you have to give the initial time. That is the starting time, which is already there in the time variable. Then you can give all these information. All these are actually optional. Long name, if you want, you can give.
So this is a variable ID basically, but we register it through diag field. Register diag field is the syntax for variable ID declaration.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can define a unit for this. You can define missing values if any particular missing value you need.
In this code, just above this line, can you keep the complete syntax of it so we know what is main, what is temp, what is because main and temp there is no title.
Okay.
It's just so if you can keep the I mean not here, perhaps in a line above with a commented, so we know.
Okay.
Yeah, the entire thing. Yes. Module name, field name. Okay.
Module name and field name are compulsory. I mean, it should be there. Init time is also actually needed. You need to have init time also, but rest everything is actually even if you don't give, it's okay. It will just there won't be any long name. Units will be no units and all.
Okay.
So once you register the diag field, it will again give a ID. So you need to.
Okay. Now, okay. ID temp equal to register diag field arguments. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Again, again an integer. Okay. Okay, now
Yeah.
we have.
So in SCDF we have temp ID equal to NCV ID, file name, variable name, like that arguments. Okay, similar
to that. Okay, now there is something else missing. When you're registering a DIAG field, you also need to give this access information. That is missing here. Let me check. Yeah, so actually before the time, okay, yeah, that is actually missing there. I don't know why. So after the field name, before init, it should be the access ID. Okay, and access IDs are nothing but an array of your spatial coordinate ID or spatial access ID. So in our case, it will be ID long and ID lam. Okay. Why this is required, or why it is done like this is through FMS you can write. Let's say you have two different models or with different resolution. So the access will be different for each of these, right? The access. So you can have in the same NetCDF file, you can have both variables from which means each variable will have its own access. Okay, so every variable is associated with a some name and an access. Okay. So once you define this, you can go ahead and start putting the values. Okay. For putting the values, you have to use the send data, and the first argument is the DAG field ID, which is here ID temp in our case. Then the values, which is U here, and U ES. We need to only send the compute domain value, because the hello will be a repetition in the process. So we need to only send the compute domain value. Then time, and can skip error message.
Also, can you please keep the syntax cities on comment mode, so we know the. Okay, so these many values are required. DIAG field ID, field itself, time required. Okay.
Okay, now we are updating the data. So we are sending the data to this particular field. Once we do that, we can. So that we have implemented the DAG manager here, and last thing we have to do is to end DAG manager. DAG manager and time. Okay.
Rajesh, I have a doubt.
Yes. Yes.
So first we called DAG manager init, where we actually started it. Then we defined axis or the coordinates. Then we defined the variable where we get a variable ID. Then we are sending the data. And then we are also calling write command there, write data. So what is the difference between send data and write data?
See, write data is just a it's just a static thing. Okay. So what it does is you can see it's outside the time loop.
Yes.
Okay. And it just runs it. When it encounters this when it executes the statement, it opens a file, equation underscore out, it creates a variable u, and it just puts the data there.
Okay.
And it's just one time thing. You have no control over anything. Like, let's say you don't want this output.
Yeah.
You have to come here and comment this out.
Yes.
Okay. DAG manager has a lot of functionalities. Like, let's say, also this is just one at the end of the this output is just time at the end of the run. But that's not how we want, right? We need the time series, or we need every 10 days or every 1 day. So in such cases, you cannot use write data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So this is just to output just one time, to maybe to check or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But the real output we are going to do with the DAG manager?
Yes, the actual diagnostic output with for getting more control over the output and all, we have to use DAG manager.
Okay.
This you can use it when you're writing some program or maybe just to check quickly without implementing DAG manager and all, whether things are going fine and all. You can check it quickly with it. But when you're implementing a proper output to get more control over the output, you need to use DAG manager. Okay. If you want, we can comment this out, or you can keep it also. You can just cross check.
So the DAG manager output writing so far we have not initiated. We only send the data and keeping it in the DAG manager.
No, actually the send data deals with that writing also.
Okay, the send data writes the data also.
Yeah, so it does a lot of things actually. Send data will send the data at every time step, and definitely we are not writing it at every time step.
Yes.
So it will check at what time step you want the data from the table. We give the information. Yeah. So accordingly, it will store the data in whatever way you want. Sometimes you might say, okay, I want average field. Okay, time average field. In such case, it will average the data. And sometimes you may want a maximum or maximum value for a time period, like the daily maximum. Then it will just calculate the maximum value. Or sometimes you want just a snapshot. In that case, it will just wait for that particular time where you want the snapshot. And then when that particular the time arrives, or when, let's say you are asking for daily data, when the time reaches that time, then it will write the data. And it also does, if you want a new file, it will check for what frequency, at what frequency you want the new files to generate. That also is done by SendData. So SendData does all such things.
Okay.
So that's why we are sending the time information also, not to cross check with the model time and your what time frequency you want the data, and all. It will check those things and do everything.
Now it is more clear.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll compile this and maybe we'll check whether it is doing it properly or not. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So let's compile this first. Okay. SendData is actually, it's not a subroutine, it's a function. You have to use something called. So it's a function. You have to use it something like this. You can use any variable here. If you use it the return value, logical value, so to define use that logical.
Okay, like a if statement. If not if yes or no.
Yeah,
whether you send or whether
yeah. So basically, what it does is, I mean, what it takes is, so okay, now we did this, but let's say in Diag Manager we are not opting for this output. Okay, in such case, this will be false, which means it's not used.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now I think I have to put this after this. This is actually the okay, it got compiled. Now we need the Diag table. Okay, so we'll copy that from script table here, and we need to edit something. Okay, I'll explain what some of these things. So this first thing is, is you can call it as an experiment name. Okay, so let's say you are doing lot of experiments, and you can give an experiment name here, and from the netcd, so this name will be written as an attribute to the netcd file. So just by checking the netcd file itself, you can know from which experiment it was. Okay, so you can give it as equation. Yeah. This again, in previous classes you came to know about this thing.
Yeah.
It should be a value which is previous
lesser than the model.
Yeah, model. Yeah. Next thing is defining the output file name, and so the file name should contain a prefix name, which is here, let's say output, and then you can have a timestamp. If in case if you're opting for many files, like you want to generate new files at some frequency. So here, this is the format. Year means it's the 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit hour, 2-digit minutes, and 2-digit second. Okay, I'll delete these things. And the output frequency here it is given as 30 minutes, but our model is already running at 1 hour, so maybe we can put it as something like 6 hours, every 6 hour output. Okay. And then you have so this is for the time units. So minutes, 1 minute is fine. And then you have at what frequency you want new file, which maybe let's say I'm saying it as 1 day. Every 1 day I want a new file. Okay. So this is the first section of this. So defining the output file. Now I'll define the variables which I want. So this is where I told about that module name. So in this case, we have to write
main.
We have to write the same module name which we gave it here. Okay. So which is main.
Main.
Okay. And then the
temp.
name which we gave it inside the code, which is
temp.
temp. Yeah. Now next is the variable name which we want inside the inside the
netcdf file.
Netcdf file. Let's say we are keeping it as
capital TEMP maybe. Temperature.
Temperature. And then you have to give the file name, which will be exactly the same as given above. Okay. Here you can give all or the maximum, minimum, and all, so by which you can get maximum values, minimum values in a time period. This is, if you put true, it will give you a average field. If it is false, it will give you a snapshot. So the thing is, you can give something like this, temperature, can buy or something. Okay, and then you can put it as false.
Okay, for snapshot.
Yeah, for snapshot. So you can get. So the good thing about Diag Manager is you can get all kinds of different kind of output without changing anything in the code.
Correct.
Okay. You can get a different frequency by using another file and putting the same variable in that.
So Prajesh, what is the concept of this 6 hours? I didn't get it actually.
So this one, 6 hours? 6 hours is the variable in what frequency your variable will be, your fields will be written. Okay, so the temperature will be written at every 6 hours.
Okay, then what is this 1 day new file?
one day, every 1 day, you will get a new file.
New file
That
means
means
new file name.
Yeah, new file. New, not just.
No,
I mean, you will get.
I mean that
Every day
model is getting coupled every 1 hour, right? Means like every all physics will be calculated at 1 hour frequency. Then that model will write output every 6 hours.
Yeah.
So for 1 day, I will be having four time frequencies in one file, and then for next day there will be second file with 4 outputs like that.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's because let's say you're running very long runs, thousands of years or hundreds of years. If it comes in one file, it will be too big and
yes.
difficult. So that's it here. Now it should run. Yes. So let's submit it. Okay. Before that, let's check what is the for how many time stuff we are running. So this is nt is 100. It's better if we keep it. It's 1 hour, right? Our delta thing. If it keep it multiple of 24 hours, will be better. We are using here. We are using only one processor. Okay, we didn't run this model with multiple processors. Yeah, I think the model finished running. Yeah. Okay. It gave an error which says no, this file cannot have both time average and instantaneous field at the same time. Which is an optional thing. You can control that by putting this to true. Mix snapshot average field to true. If you put this to true, that error won't happen. But it's a good thing to not to mix average and snapshot field in the same file. So maybe we can define another file.
Okay, so we give a different name in Diag table.
Yeah, just create another file for
instantaneous. Yeah.
Oh, we didn't. Oh. Yeah. So now the model. Okay, you can see that it generated a lot of outputs. Again, each processor writes its own local domain in this file. You can see that we used a 16 processor, so there are 16 files, 0 to 15, and now we have to use another program to combine these files. Once you combine these, you'll get a proper NC file with the full output. Okay. But before that, we can even check whether things have come properly.
But it is writing files at every 3 hours, I think, right?
Sorry?
It is writing that output for every 3 hours, right? Like we mentioned 6 hours, and your output shows, I think, for every 3 hours, it is that output file is there.
No, every 6 hours.
Let's show it again.
Yeah, so the output is, let's say, some
hour, minute, month, day.
So this is January 2nd, and it's written third.
It is 3rd hour, right? 3rd hour.
Yeah.
So next is 6th hour.
Next is, yeah. So
Next
every
is
6 hours it is next day.
Next day.
Next day, third hour.
So we are writing it every day, but inside these files there may be 4 outputs.
Where is 6?
Okay.
Okay,
That is the next day. Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
Rajesh, but I have this doubt. Why is output instantaneous at being written at 6th hour instead of 3rd hour?
Yeah. So basically, the file naming is like so for an average output, the average is considered as the middle of.
Yes.
Okay. So 0 and 6. So the middle is 3.
Yes, but for the instantaneous, the last time step.
Because it's at the time step, which is at 6. And that's exactly why we should not mix match these, this instantaneous and the average output in the same file.
The time definition is different because.
Yeah. Time definition is different for instantaneous and. Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, you can see that it ran for 5 days. Okay. I hope, I don't have to combine these outputs, right? It's just simple thing which you can do. Just you have to run that program. It will combine it. Once you combine it, you'll get the NC file. So if you check this output, you can see that there are 4 times in this. Okay, and you can see that its longitude is 250 and latitude is 125. That's because it's just a portion of that. And also it has written the domain decomposition here. The information that is in the X domain. This is the global domain 1 to 1000, and this particular processor is writing 251 to 500 in the X, and this is in the Y. Okay, so basically that combine program reads these information to combine it properly.
Yes.
So that's for DAG manager. Okay, so maybe I can go through what happens in this process. So when you call this init, DAG manager init, that's the time when it goes and reads the DAG table. Okay, it reads all the information from the DAG. Okay, it keeps all the information and inside it, and when you call the send data, according to those information which was read from there, it will do all the processes. Okay, so in our case, in the DAG table there were two files, and the same variable was written in both average and instantaneous times. So So those information will be read and kept inside when we call this diag manager init. And when the send data is called, the same value will go for two different fields, one for average field and one for the instantaneous field. And when the time comes, the time frequency comes, it outputs those fields. Okay. And now, if you let's say if I am defining another, let's assume that I want this is in another module, and I have again temperature variable there, but now the name is something else. Okay, sub module or okay, it's from some other module, and I have another. I have the same temperature variable there also. You can define that variable with the same name temp. Just keep some other identification for that module or some other name for that module, and you can get that particular value by controlling it from here. You can put something like and you can give some other name. Okay, so you can keep this name as same.
So it's something like you want to see the temperature update after one parameterization, after another advection, yes, after diffusion, yes, how the temperature evolved in different module you can,
modules can,
So here, if we go to the, can you open the ODTM main file where this is written? There we write the module name as ODTM. I just checked.
Sorry?
Right? Yeah, here.
Sorry, what is it? Yeah.
I'm asking, so what is this ODTM? Is the ODTM here, which is the module name?
Yeah, see that actually this name has nothing to do with the actual module name or anything. Okay, it's just an identification, and if you use, let's say here you use ODTM 1.
Yes.
This SPHM when you're outputting, you should use ODTM 1 there.
Okay, so now so now as so suppose I have to write another variable from another module, then when I am writing this ID SPHM line, this register diag field, there I should use a different module name and the same in the diag field.
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is about DAG manager, how to implement that. So I hope this by this might be clear how to write a new variable, right? If you want to write a new variable from ODTM, I hope it's somewhat.
Yes.
Yeah, we can use this information. Need some practice, especially the last question asked that module. I thought this module name is some real module name, so it looks like some dummy name.
Actually, we can think of it like this. So that variable is identified by together of these two things. It's just that.
Okay.
So that in our field is identified not just by this name. It's combination of these two. That's
okay.
So you have to give the same combination here also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our example, we don't have a module called main. We just puts the name main, right?
Sorry?
In our example, this particular program, we don't have a name called module. There is no module called main. Okay. Okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
Just a name. Okay, now coming to data override, which is used for reading the data. Okay.
Okay.
But for that, there is one problem that I don't have any data to show any example here, but I'll show you how to implement that anyway. Okay. So to implement data override, again you have to
use diag override mode.
Data override. Yeah, I guess that's all. Yeah. That also is needed. Yeah. So you only need these two. Again, for using the data override, initialize the data using data override init, and the argument to that is the domain. So the data override you should call data override initialization after defining the domain. Okay, somewhere after defining the domain, like after that. Okay, I'll call it here. Call data override. Init. Okay, you can see. Okay, this is the full syntax for the data override init call. You can see that there are 4 different arguments, like ATM domain and ocean domain, ice domain, land domain. So that this is because now this FMS is developed for couple model. So in the same code you can have different models, and each model can have independent domain decomposition and all. So we can have at least 4 different models with completely different domain decomposition, etc. And you can read data to any of these models. So here, actually, you can use, because we have only one model, you can use any of these actually, ice domain or land domain or whatever. But anyway, we'll use ocean domain in here. So
domain.
So we have
that ocean domain in is a standard standard.
So that's a dummy argument name.
Oh, dummy only. Okay, ocean domain.
Yeah, it's an argument. Yeah, argument name. So we are
name.
So it has all these arguments. By giving it like this, we are specifically saying that I am giving this argument to the second argument here.
Okay. So should we declare ocean domain in as a type in the beginning?
No. This is just This is just an argument, name of that argument.
Okay.
Yeah. So otherwise, it takes 4 arguments. Now let's say, and all these 4 are optional arguments. All of these are optional arguments. Now how do you give Okay, but I have only ocean domain. I am not using any other model. How do you give only ocean domain in as our argument? So that's why we use the name, explicit naming here. It's just otherwise in these cases the arguments are taken in according to the position. Okay, but here we cannot. So if we just put like this, so this is valid. There is no problem in this actually. But the problem is now the domain will go into ATM as the first argument.
Okay.
Okay. But I don't want it as the first argument. I want it as second argument, and the second argument name is ocean domain in which.
Okay.
So
that's what I asked. Like this ocean underscore domain underscore in is a recognized argument name itself, no argument label for this data.
Yeah, argument label.
Okay.
Yeah. So this will initialize the data override, and once you initialize it, it's very simple to do an override. Okay, let's say data override with a function. Just subroutine. Just call data override. Again, I'll keep this whole thing here. So here there is something called grid name, which is again it's just an identification for. So as I said, we can use many models, right? And in a couple system, you will be having different models, and different models will have different grids. So we need to give some identifier for each grid. So here I'll just give it as you can give any name here. It's similar to that module thing in DAG Manager. I'm giving it as OCN here, and a name for the a field name code, which let's say I'm giving it as U here, and the data, which data you want to overwrite. So I'm putting it as U here, and then time, again the time, and which is again required, and these are not these are optional argument. Override is again it will tell you whether it actually I mean the data was override or not. It is again a logical variable, so maybe you can keep it to check if it got overwritten or not. So override. Okay.
So is it but this is a logical, then it's a function, right? Is that a subroutine?
This is a subroutine.
Okay. But we declared logical. That is
yeah.
Override is logical. Okay.
Logical. So yeah, I have put it here outside the time loop, which means it will be overridden on only one. Okay, let's say, but you want, so for posting files and all, you need to override at every time step, right? You need to read the data at every time step. So you have to put it inside the time loop. Okay.
Here you are overriding it as U as such, but U is a model variable itself, no? Prognostic variable.
Yeah, prognostic variable. And this is just for example. We can put something else.
Maybe
you can. F.
Yeah, right. Maybe you can keep as a source term to heat in this example.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean some source term for every time step, like SFC, surface flux condition, something like that.
Yeah, I'll just keep it as F for
F. Yes, F.
Variable name as F. So I need to define those.
So it can be a heat source or sink.
Yeah. And we'll allocate. Okay. Now, so I'm reading data to this variable F here. Now you can see that again time information is going inside this data override call, and this is how it actually goes inside there and identify which at what what time frequency it should read, or how to do the interpolation, time interpolation, and all. Let's say your data is in monthly, but your model is running at every 1 hour. So what it does is it goes inside and with this time information, it will identify the time before, the time just before, and time just after this time, and it will do an weighted average or weighted interpolation in the time, and it will give the data.
So it is available in the array Fij.
Yes.
So in this line, the first is an identifier. I understand.
Yeah.
What is the first F? Is it
it's just a name. Again, it's similar to Diag Manager.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's say you can put it as FE. Yeah.
And the second F is what we will use in the source code.
This is the actual data. This is the actual value.
Actual value.
Array within the code.
Basically, this is data, and this is a field name for that.
But that field name should be same as the name inside the data file, right?
Maybe we can write a data table.
Yes.
Data table itself. Yeah. Then we'll understand.
So.
Here OCN or this small OCN.
Small letter OCN.
F heat.
To write the
heat. Then T10 will be
T10
can be inside the data. Inside the data it can be any name, na?
Yeah, which this should be the name which is there in the NetCDF file.
NetCDF.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say it's SW or something. Shortwave or something.
Yes. And now I understood.
File name and then true.
The file name, and whether it is on the grid or not.
Model grid or not. Scaling factor.
Very good.
If you want just some values, you can just put it as like this, let's say 10, and then if you don't put anything here, so these two.
Okay. Yes. Then it will read 10 for all values.
Yeah. It will just take 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 10 for all values. Fine.
When you so if you change the heat here, you have to change that. Let's say if it is FH, then you have to just write FH there also.
Yeah, I understood now. Thank you.
So that's about data override. Yeah, so I think we covered most of the functionalities which they are using in ODTM FMS. Yeah, there is one more thing which is registering the restart key. So that you can do restart, write restart file using the restart. Just by doing this register restart field and then yeah, and calling save restart. Okay. Should I go through this? Okay, I'll go through this also. So basically, so you can register a restart field using register restart field. This is restart ODTM is again is a type, a derived data type, and restart file is just a file name. And I think the restart file name here we have given as something ODTM restart.nc. Okay. It's just a file name, and then a field name. Next is a field name and the variables. You can see here there are we are saving 2 time steps. Okay. Due to the numerical computation techniques we are using, we have to save 2 time steps here, the current and the previous time step. So we are saving both of that, and we are giving the domain information here. And once you register this, okay, once you register this, you get, I mean, then you have to use this restart ODTM, which is restart ODTM is a type, restart type, I think. Yeah, restart file type. Okay. Then you can just call save restart with timestamp.
In our example, timestamp is just time, right?
Sorry.
In our example, the one heat equation, timestamp is just time.
You have to create this timestamp actually here.
Date to string time.
Date to string time, and then I'm calculating the time, restart time frequency also here.
You need to a couple of steps you need. Okay, if time is greater than time restart, then you register that timestamp and save.
Yeah, you can just save restart without timestamp also. in that case, that file will not have timestamp, and maybe at the end of the run, you can just call save restart without timestamp, and you can have the end restart without timestamp. But if you need intermediate restart, then you need timestamp and all.
Mm-hmm.
Should I implement it there too?
Maybe in the next class we can implement freshly the restart. Yeah. Today we DAG manager data override. So this video will be exclusively for that. So okay. Next lecture maybe restart. That's the only remaining part, no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is good. Next fresh, because 2-3 things will be very heavy for people to follow.
Okay.
I think participants should practice it without hands-on. I mean, if you do without do practicals, we will forget this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think when there is a need, then only maybe people will.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if we will listen this video patiently throughout, then we will able to remember and do it ourselves.
Yeah. The best thing would be to create a documentation, step-by-step documentation to do something like this, how to write a new variable or something like that.
Yeah, Prajesh, do Pratyush provide any document for these modules, like that support system?
No, there is no documentation available.
Like, how did you learn these things, module and all? Because I have never seen the details of like written documented details of these things.
These are the modules which we are talking about here. And these modules,
whatever module you are calling,
so those are Fortran features. Those are the features of Fortran programming language. And
so it is inbuilt in that, you're saying.
Inbuilt means these features are inbuilt, that like you can writing a module and calling a module, using a module and all. These are inbuilt features. But
okay.
Let's say diagram manager is not an inbuilt thing in Aditya or Pratyush or anywhere. It's the FMS source code. If you go to the source code directly in ODTM, there is a directory called FMS fair. Okay, and then if you go inside there are so many things you can see, and all these are some modules. And you can see that there is DAG manager module here, and inside this you can see there are source code which are again
yes.
If you open this DAG manager, you can see this is the module, DAG manager mode, and you can see the functions like send data here. This is
got it here. Yeah. So it is basically like an integral part of every model setup, right? That numerical model setup. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Like the foundation build the model.
So I have one more question. In your main program, you defined an addition, that plus operator, when you were doing the time increment.
Yes.
So why this is required? Means like that.
Because the time, by default in Fortran or in any programming languages, there will be some things available, like integer is available. Then real numbers are available, and the addition of integers, addition of real numbers, all are well defined. But but adding is not, it's not defined like that, right? It's not
No, but before that, when we were what do we call that? When we were calculating that U value using that left and right grid, right? We were averaging. What do we call that term? Actually, I'm not get that two level or something we say, na? Like left grid and right grid and average of that to calculate the value of U at some grade, ij.
Yeah.
So
So
there also we are using this addition, right?
yes, we are
So
using. So that operator is all the by default that is available in Fortran. Okay.
So, like, do you mean that U is defined already as a real variable and time was in integer mode? That's why we are defining.
No. Time is not even integer actually.
Okay.
Time is neither integer. Time is not real. Time is a derived data.
No, I mean that del time where you're using del time.
Here, this is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using just plus and which was working.
Yes.
And for this plus, I imported something.
Yeah.
So that's because this time is not integer, not real, not complex, not character. So these are the data types which is available by default in Fortran.
Okay.
So if I try to print time, it might say some error. It might give an error because it don't know how to print this time because this time is
information is not there.
Yeah, time is defined by FMS actually. That time is defined by FMS. Actually, it's, I know what to say. The advanced programming languages, which we call objects and all. So if you know.
But it will do that simple arithmetic calculation if you are defining this operator in module. No.
No. So don't know. So I can show you what is actually the time type. Time manager.
Okay, it need that operator information, right?
Yeah. So a time type is actually it contains all these things: seconds, days, ticks, and something called dummy. Okay. And all these are integers. Now, when you add two time types, what do you mean? Do you mean that just add seconds to seconds and days to days or ticks to ticks? What does it? If that's what you mean, you have to
that's what I'm asking. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, and here is the operator which is defined as plus. Okay, now if you search for time plus, it will show you what it is doing. It's a function. So it takes two arguments, time 1 and time 2, and it does something.
Yes, I understood. This is not that arithmetic calculation like the do loop we do. This is not something like that. Okay, yes.
Okay. Is there any other?
Regarding that previous grid generation session when Vinu was telling, like whenever we are doing that, we are generating that grid spec file, we don't need to compile our model again, right? Because anyway, we will be calling that file only, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
This stick with this, I have pushed it to the Bitbucket so everyone can pull it and try it in your area.
Thank you, Prajesh.
Okay then.
Okay. That was today's lesson was very new and very fresh, and we had a lot of information in today's session, and so it was very lengthy, around 2 hours.
Yeah.
But thank
I
you,
think this
Prajeet.
is
It was
one
very
of the
useful.
core lecture of FMS for anybody to learn. So this FMS documentation GFDL is not providing, like
Yeah, it's there actually, but it's not very, it's there, but it's not in such a way that okay, how to implement DAG manager, or it's just documentation about the subroutines. Okay, this function is there, what it does. This function is there, what it does. But it doesn't say okay, you have to do this, then this, or something. It's not like what they call user guide. It's just documentation about available functions.
Okay. Yeah, that is very nice. I enjoyed this session today. Lot of new things for me. I could correlate this with the NetCDF library handling. I mean,
yes.
many of it.
Yeah, that's how. I mean, if you know NetCDF library, it will be easier to understand.
To understand, yeah. Yeah, it's very good. Okay, Shiga, maybe we can conclude today.
Yes, we can. It was really a useful session. So I will stop the recording now.
Yeah.